Hi, iWriters. Welcome to How to Write a Story in 5 Minutes. Today, we're going to be learning the 5 easy steps that writers can use when coming up with ideas for their storylines, dynamic characters, and even how to hook your readers. I'll be using examples from one of my favorite books in my Turtle Town series to help you out so you can see how authors come up with some of these ideas, tips, and tricks. All right, so let's get started. Step number 1. First, we want to create a dynamic character. That means we want our character to be unique. Now, think about why you love a particular book, story, or movie. We tend to connect to the character the most. So I want you to think about what's going to make your character different, because ultimately we want them to become the hero in your story. So now let's go ahead and look at some of the unique characteristics that make a story hero. If you need to go grab your brainstorming notebook, this is a good time to do it. So, heroes. These are basically your main character, and they must be relatable. That way your reader's able to put themselves in the shoes of that character and experience everything the hero experiences. Now, the hero should have admirable qualities, something your reader can look up to. They also have to be different than all the other characters in the story. They shouldn't be a follower. They need to be a leader and even make difficult choices. They should have an interesting personality, so we enjoy seeing what they do or what they say next. And finally, heroes are not perfect. They must have flaws and weaknesses, again, so that we're able to relate. Now for my favorite part. Let's talk a little bit about ways to brainstorm when coming up with your character. I love getting to use real-life animal inspiration when coming up with ideas for fictional story characters. So today, you all are going to get to meet the real inspiration behind the Turtle Town character, Snapshell. And he is here with us, making his grand appearance. Snapshell is a box shell turtle, and we're going to learn a little bit more about him, and we're going to take some notes. I've already started taking a few notes about Snapshell in my brainstorming notebook. We know that he's a box shell turtle, which means he's a tortoise. That's a land only. And he does not have web flipper-like feet like sea turtles. Box shell turtles, they can be shy at times. They hide all the way in their shells. And sea turtles, they can't hide all the way in their shell like a box shell turtle. So there's some benefit to that, especially if you're slow like a box shell turtle. Maybe we should write that one down. When we're creating characters like Snap in the Turtle Town series, you may see from the cover that he's on a surfboard. Well, that's kind of opposite of what a box shell turtle would do, surf and swim, but that's how he's different. That's how he's a hero. He's not like all the other box shell turtles. He has a goal in life to be a professional surfing turtle. I hope everybody has an interesting animal character in mind to do a little bit more research on, because it's time to move on to step number 2, settings. And it looks like we are in a setting where you'll find some of the coolest animals on the planet, Australia. So let's go ahead and consider what we need to put in our setting. You want to think about the geographic location and what makes it unique, which means weather, climate, season, time period, all have to be a part of the setting. Think about what makes that area unique. Maybe certain types of vegetation grows there, or a specific animal lives there. You'll want to think about cultural elements too. Also think about other aspects of your setting. Does the story take place at a school, a park, on an airplane, or underwater? You'll need to put yourself in these positions to make sure your reader is able to be a part of your character's experience, which means description is also a big part of the setting. Sometimes I'll close my eyes and imagine everything about my setting before I ever start describing it on paper. Remember, stories take place in your imagination before they ever make it to paper. Now, let's use the setting in the Turtle Town series to see how all of this works. So grab a coconut or a shaved ice, because we are headed to the North Shore of Oahu. This is where Turtle Town Book 2, The Green Room, takes place. I just thought about something. I'm not really dressed appropriately for this setting. Hold on one second while I get a little bit more beach ready. All right, much better. Now, let's see what all we can learn about this beautiful setting. Well, first, did you know that the waves on the North Shore get so big sometimes that you can literally feel the beach shake underneath your feet when the waves crash? Now, that is definitely something that I would write down in a brainstorming notebook. Also, not all of the Hawaiian Islands look the same. For example, here we are on the big island of Hawaii at one of the black sand beaches. Anyone know why the sand is black? That's right, it's volcanic materials and lava fragments. Now that definitely would make for a pretty cool setting. Now let's go all the way up to the clouds. Here we are in Maui at the top of the Haleakala crater, also known as the House of the Sun. We are so high up that we're literally in line with the clouds. Pretty cool, right? We are at our last stop. We are inside a cave on the island of Kauai, which happens to be one of my favorite islands in the Hawaiian island chain, which is over 100 islands long, but only 9 of them are inhabited. All great data to collect when you've got your brainstorming notebook and you're looking for ideas for a particular setting. All right, so now it's time to move on to step number 3. The problem, or the story conflict. It's kind of ironic we were just inside a cave because problems are also known as the innermost cave, if you follow Christopher Vogler's writing elements in the book called The Hero's Journey. What do I mean, innermost cave? Well, a conflict can be either internal or external, and longer stories typically have both. Let's take a look at this chart to help explain. The inner conflict is the fight inside the hero as the character discovers who they are and what they will become. The outer conflict is the conflict that is much more visible or active. Some examples. For inner conflict, maybe someone is struggling to feel accepted, or they don't feel very confident, or they could be missing somebody, or trying to figure out how to move on or get over something sad. An external conflict could be a storm or a disaster, or maybe an external pain like a broken bone. Being bullied is also an external conflict. Ultimately, problems allow the hero to change by the end of the story. Which leads us to step number 4, the resolution, or the solution to the story's problem. The two go hand in hand, of course. Now, I have a little formula that I like to call the try again when trying to solve your character's problem. We don't want to fix the problem too quickly because that means the story's over. We also want to make sure that the problem is able to develop enough to keep the story interesting and even be realistic. I always say, don't get lazy in your writing and solve your character's problem for them as the writer. We have to be creative enough to think about how the character will solve the problem. We don't want to just save them. When you come up with a solution, be sure to consider how the secondary characters might have helped the hero get to that solution. Maybe you have a mentor guide the hero, or the villain challenges the hero enough so that the hero becomes motivated to save the day. We are almost finished, which means you get to start your story, which is step number 5, the start, or what I like to call the hook. So let's talk a little bit about different types of hooks that authors use when starting their story to make it interesting so that your reader will want to keep reading. Go ahead and use this worksheet to develop your hook. There are so many different ways to start your story, including foreshadowing or jumping straight into the action, or maybe even dialogue. I would suggest that you grab 10 different fictional books and read all of the other ways that writers start their story. For example, here's my hook in Turtletown Book 3, The Golden Boy. "Grab my hoof," Tex yelled as he hung from the door of the helicopter. As you see, I used dialogue and I dove straight into the action to start my story. But I did it in a way so that the reader would be curious and ask questions about what's going to happen next. So go ahead and give it a try. And remember, if you can't think about where to start, close your eyes and envision where your character is at the very start of your story. We hope you enjoyed these tips and tricks that authors can use when coming up with ideas for characters and stories. And if you would like more activities, how-to videos, maybe even do some exercises with our mascot, I the Guy, at the iWRITE organization, or even go to our virtual creative writing summer camp, be sure to visit iWRITE's website at www.iwrite.org. And don't forget, we have an annual publishing contest for kids just like you to become a professionally published author or illustrator in the iWRITE Short Stories by Kids for Kids anthology. So be sure to check us out because we can't wait to read what you have to share with the world as a writer.